Well, evening everybody. We're back. How's everybody doing? Well, evening everybody. Alright, yeah, we're live. Welcome to Geek Retro-Spective. Final Fantasy Tactics. We're on part 4 already. I'm joined by my co-hosts Martel, Ardenon, and Crusader Saracen. Say hi to chat, everybody.
Good, how you doing? Hey, here.
We're on part 4 already. I'm joined by my co-hosts
Martel here.
Martel, Ardenon, and Crusader.
Hey people, Crusader here.
Yep, we got a full roster. Except for Dornall. Don't know if changing the time up threw him for a loop, but here we are. So, question for chat. I was going to ask. So there's an echo. Never a dull moment around here. Let's see what we can do about that. In the meantime, co-hosts, go ahead and regale our audience with your activities and misadventures from the week. Go ahead. Like, Ardenon wrote part 4 of his comic series recently. I featured it on my blog. Why don't you tell us about it?
Oh, I need to do a lot of digging based on some of the a couple of comic projects I'm working on, and ultimately, this is the question that's just been nagging at me for so long. Why did Marvel Comics just sort of collapse after 1968? And I think the problem I saw is like I just never could figure it out. Took a little bit of digging and watching what was going on in the whole superlative pub arena to start catching on. And I just needed to, I guess, start working it out myself.
All right, good for you, dipping your toes in the arena. So Brian, you said you wrote about it in your blog recently, or?
Brian posted today.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I didn't manage to catch that one. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, not a problem. It's the fourth installment of I think it's going to be 5, but it might end up being 6 just because it's been gradually expanding as it's been going along.
What about you, Martel? What'd you do recently?
Enjoying the life of an indulgent wastrel.
An indulgent what?
Wastrel.
Okay, that's a word that's beyond me. I'm sorry about that. Whoops.
Okay.
No, I've just been doing stuff to keep myself occupied. This and that.
Good. All right. Always good to see. As for myself, yesterday I did just see Macross Plus for the first time. Saw that one in theaters and a special screening. It was a lot of fun. Highly enjoyed it. Highly recommend it if they ever play it in theaters again. For any of y'all. Bradford, you've probably seen Macross Plus, right? You're an anime and mecha fiend for sure. I could probably put money down that Bradford has seen it for sure. Which one's better, Swiss or Belgium chocolate? Chat, or Ardenon, Martel, anyone have anything to say on that?
My preference is Belgian.
Really?
Yeah.
What Belgian brands do you recommend?
I don't have any good brands. I just if I'm presented with Swiss or Belgian, I'll go with Belgian. It's a little less sweet.
Okay, but nothing like no brands in particular that
I,
come to
I,
mind.
I couldn't give you one, not right off the top of my head. I don't eat a lot of candy, so
Fair enough.
it's one of those where if it's put in front of me and I'm told here's a choice, that's what I'd go with.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see, I'm hoping for the best with the Wheel of Time. Ooh. I'd ask how that is, but I'm not watching it. I don't really have any intention to, and well, actually, not gonna lie, I've never actually read the Wheel of Time series, so I don't really have any attachment to it, one or the other.
Okay, everybody, shut up a second.
I feel bad for people who...
I just need to check something here. I want to see how my voice is coming through. Okay, everybody, shut up a second. Yeah, it's still going. I just need to check something here. It's like my mic sensitivity is way up. But in Discord it looks normal. Yeah, it's still going. It's like my mic sensitivity is way up. But in Discord it looks normal. Oh, is it echoing for you, chat?
I can hear an echo. It sounds like it's like about 12-second delay.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Do you have headphones, Brian, or...?
Yes, I do.
That's peculiar.
Yeah, I even wrote down all the same settings from when I got this to work, so seems to be a random fluctuation somewhere. Or if I cut down my volume. Oh, really? The echo is quiet? Because for me, it's like thundering. So chat's fine with it?
The echo is very faint.
Okay, it might just be my headphones then. The echo is quiet because for me, it's like thundering. So chat's fine with it?
Yeah, there is still an echo. It's just like about a 12-second delay, fairly faint, at least here in Discord.
Okay, it might just be my headphones then.
Is it...
Okay, then I'm not going to worry about it. Thanks for bearing with me.
All right. Well, now that we got the teasing issues out of the way, shall we get into it, gentlemen?
Okay, I'm restoring the Discord screen share, so you guys don't have to deal with that same delay in the game itself. So now, last time, let's see, what did we do? We won the battle at Swiggy Woods against some goblins and bombs and giant cats and stuff. Then we confronted the Death Corps, overheard that their leader, Vigroff, was behind the kidnapping of Marquis Elmdor, and there were divisions in the ranks. Then Aldous beat up a prisoner to learn that the rest of the Death Corps were hiding out at a place called the Rat's Nest in the desert. So that's where we're going to go next. Sound good to everybody?
Ooh, Brian, something interesting from the chat. Escape Velo says, recommend books for my 9 and 12-year-old nieces, sci-fi and fantasy in particular. Gents?
Sci-fi and fantasy in particular.
For 9 and 12-year-old girls.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to let my co-host handle that.
50 Shades of Grey, I believe, is a good sci-fi fantasy,
No,
right?
no.
No. Okay, no, I'm kidding, Escape Velo. Please don't.
Brothers Karamazov.
There you go.
Yeah,
So a gripping sci-fi fan. No, Moby Dick, War and Peace, yes.
Hey, it will keep them out of trouble.
It will keep them out of everything.
Exactly. All the great Russian novels are 963 pages of absolutely nothing happening, at the end of which somebody's aunt dies.
Well, let's see. For some serious recommendations, sci-fi fantasy for 9 and 12-year-olds. My usual fare is military sci-fi, which I imagine is a bit much for a 9 and or 12-year-old, so I'm going to stay away from those.
Yeah, Legacy of the Aldenadas.
Normally, I would recommend some of Brian's works, obviously, like Ethereal or Combat Frame Exceed. But 9 and 12-year-old girls, I'm not sure. Trying to think. Let's see what he's got so far. He says,
Alan D.
Hunger
Foster.
Games, Wheel of Time. Oh, okay, so they can read big books at least. He has no problem with that.
Yeah, I think what I'd do is I'd go for the Heinlein juveniles. I know they're more geared to a male audience, but I think they might be enjoyable if the girls enjoy sci-fi.
Yep. Pretty much anything by Alan Dean Foster or Timothy Zahn is going to be great.
Yes, Foster would be a really good recommendation too.
I'm trying to think of something outside of established franchises like BattleTech or Star Wars, so they don't really have to dive into lore, because I don't imagine a 9-year-old knows much about lore. Let's see, I'm trying to think of something. Also something outside of the usual young adult fare.
Should probably be thinking more middle grade, because, like, young adult is, like, high school.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I'll throw out, only because I was introduced to it in 5th grade, E. Doc Smith, the Lensman series. I thought it was compelling when my 5th grade English teacher was reading it to us at lunch. That was what she would do, is lunch break, we'd get to listen to the Lensman.
Lensman would be good. A lot of old pulp would be good. What was her name? I'm trying to remember a particular author, contemporary with E. Doc Smith. C.L. Moore?
Yeah, C.L. Moore might be. Well, never know. You could certainly try. Sure, her birthday was just on Pearl Harbor Day.
Maybe it's a bit too mature for a 9 and 12-year-old?
Potentially, but sometimes you never know. I'm not sure that there's anything in C.L. Moore that would be offensive for a parent who wants to have their 9 or 12-year-old read it.
Let's see. Well, nothing that you won't find in Wheel of Time, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't get past book 4, or like the first 2 chapters of book 4. I pitched it after that.
And there's nothing in C.L. Moore or A.H. Merritt that you won't find in the Wheel of Time. So if the Wheel of Time is appropriate, then those two and their entire works would also be appropriate. Yeah, actually, Rawl has a very good suggestion. The Redwall series; those are excellent.
Yes, they are.
Reads
Excellent.
for young people.
Redwall is fantastic, and there were, 30 of them?
Yeah, so Redwall for sure. You have that co-signed by all of us.
Actually, Brian Jakes had another series, The Flying Dutchman. I think there were there were at least 2 books. I think that there were 3, but also pretty good. General concept is boy and his dog are stowaways on the Flying Dutchman when that business all goes down. They're the only 2 innocent souls on a ship, so they get kicked off to wander the earth for eternity helping people.
That would be a good one. Rawl asked, what about Conan? Robert E. Howard, would he be a good recommendation for 9 and 12-year-old girls?
If
I
they're
don't
into that
know.
sort of
I
thing.
think that's probably
More boy-oriented?
yeah. That plus, I think some of the themes might be a little bit disturbing. If you're not keyed into violence and I guess a little bit of horror, you
Yeah.
might not want to do those.
I would say
Maybe,
that if you're going to do Howard, do Savage Tales of Solomon Kane.
Solomon Kane might be a
Second
bit
it.
much for a 9 and 12-year-old girl, though.
I
Well,
say
Brian
if-
seconds it then.
If you're going to do Robert E. Howard, Solomon Kane is much less barbarian water and much more righteous destruction of evil.
What about Edgar Rice Burroughs, something like Tarzan?
Tarzan would be I think okay. It might be a little difficult to understand some of the stuff.
That's fair.
What are everyone's thoughts on Sherlock Holmes?
Some
I
of the
read
stu-
Sherlock Holmes when I was young, but that went over my head, a lot of it, because I was
Yeah.
probably too young to read it. Then again, I did try to read Moby Dick when I was like maybe 10. That didn't really work out that well either. Percy Jackson's Olympian series would be a good read for their age, actually. Bradford has a very good suggestion there. Very good, like kids' urban fantasy series.
Okay, here's a book that I read a lot when I was a kid. Airborne by Kenneth Apple.
Oh yes, I read those a lot as a kid. Yeah, Airborne, and then the sequel was Skybreaker, and the final book in the trilogy was Starfall. Those are excellent.
That was a trilogy?
Actually, yeah.
I thought they only had 2.
Oh no, he finished it out way. The Starfall or Star Climber came way later, but he finished out that trilogy and that story, which I was really happy to see. That series touched me a lot as a kid. So yeah, the Airborne trilogy, Escape, is an excellent read. That's the first book, Airborne, second book, Skybreaker, and then last book, Star Climber. Does Percy Jackson have young females in the stories? Yes, absolutely. Rick Riordan has a very large, sprawling cast that encompasses many. What's the word? Is demographics the right word? That almost sounds so markety speak, but I suppose it's a word that works.
Accurate insofar as it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Percy Jackson is a good one.
So I cannot, for the life of me, remember the title. There's a book series about there's an alternate universe. They send, like, their universe is something like a 60th of the scale of ours, so they send through basically dragonfly and fly planes that are actually piloted and have aerial dogfights in a war.
That sounds like a premise that Terry Pratchett would come up with.
Plot of the first book was the evil Soviet bloc type authoritarian side wants to wipe out everyone on our side of the planet, so they bioengineer a deadly virus and build mosquito bombers, basically, to transmit it into our world.
Well, while you look that up and try to remember that, let's see. Ardenon does recommend Wrinkle in Time. Excellent. That is an excellent book for young people at the time. Let's see. Has anyone here read? Let's see what Escape asks. McCaffrey, Dragons of Pern? I'm not familiar with that series.
That's a good one.
Long time ago. I'm more familiar with the Tower series. That one isn't bad. It is very family oriented. It's kind of repetitive. I think the first few books are enjoyable and might be accessible to younger readers, but when it starts getting into the conflict of humans against these alien civilizations and the potential to run them through combat, I think Mom and Dad might want to take a look at them before you pass those over. They're very much interpersonal relation kind of books. Let me see if I can find those.
Having a little more trouble with this fight. There we go.
Didn't you just one-shot that guy?
Yeah, I probably had Zodiac compatibility, and also Bolt is more powerful when it's raining.
Is there an altitude advantage for casting?
Not for casting, but for physical attacks, yeah. Especially arrows.
Okay. Makes sense.
And that was just a random encounter. Let's see. So, yep. My squire was revived. Good stuff. I'll grab that. Yeah, Reinhardt now has the ability to make other units go faster by yelling at them. So dig that one. Archer's exactly one page.
You know, I just realized. What's the last time I've seen a game, like the newest game that's come out, where it has that little gloved hand in the menu as the cursor that kind of waves in and out like that? When was that? Used to be everywhere in gaming. Now I can't actually recall the last time I've seen it.
Yeah, it's all just an arrow these days.
If that.
Okay, not bad. Save early, save often. Yeah, seeing a lot of book recommendations in chat. So good call on that question, escape velocity.
Yeah, you picked the right crowd.
Crowd full of male SF fans.
Of impeccable taste.
Oh, that's just redundant.
Or wide readers, voracious wide readers.
The day I have kids and they want to learn to read, I will raise them only on the finest of oats.
Well said.
And then they come in with a copy of 50 Shades of Grey, and then I ask why they betray me.
Oh, by then it'll be something far worse.
Oh, geez. Yeah, Brian's actually right. You will live to see man-made horrors beyond your comprehension.
Saying.
I believe someone said.
Yeah, Tesla was making a prophecy. We are observing the views.
We haven't even seen the beginnings of it, or we're only seeing the beginnings of that particular prophecy.
Yeah, the satire
Just
wasn't a
trying to keep
prophecy; it
them-
was a promise. Or it wasn't a
just
warning;
trying
it
to
was a
keep
promise.
them from Margaret Atwood and Ursula K. Le Guin mind poison. Yes, good call.
Yeah.
And then he also mentions this Bujold. I'm not familiar with that particular author, but apparently she writes mind poison.
Lois McMaster.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Sky Hernstrom has a great antidote for the Le Guin poison.
Weren't the first 3 books supposed to be good? For Le Guin, or
The only Le Guin I've ever read was The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, and that book is disgusting.
I've never
Or a
read
short story, my apologies. I had to read it for high school, part of our standard reading curriculum.
Yeah. The authors, the 4 big sci-fi authors that I read growing up were David Drake, Eric Flint, David Weber, and John Ringo.
I've read the Belisari series from David Drake. Those were a lot of fun. Not something I recommend to a 9 or 12-year-old girls, but they were fun for me when I read them.
Yeah, Eric Flint. So isekai. There's a way to do it right, and Eric Flint did it right, which is town in West Virginia gets sent back to the middle of the 30 Years' War. Promptly sets about industrializing Europe. That's the first 2 books, and those are the only 2 books in the series as far as I'm concerned, because the rest is... Yeah.
Always a
Yep.
shame when that has to happen, huh?
Eric Flint is literally a Trotsky. So the book series turns into Jewish communists plot to create a USSE
Oh, jeez.
and gleefully kill all of the aristocracy and anti-Semites in Germany in 400 years early so that the Nazis can never possibly exist.
Oh. Well,
Yeah.
alright then.
The
Well,
first
that's
2 books
all
are
I need to
good.
hear. Wonderful.
Yeah, the first 2 books are good, and then after that, it just turns into so much political onanism,
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
which again is a shame because he's really good at writing military stuff.
Many such cases. Sad. Many
Honor
such...
Harrington series is pretty good.
Honor Harrington?
David
Yes,
Weber.
absolutely. I loved Honor Harrington series, although, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to a 9 or 12-year-old. I did get into those around 14, when I was like 14, 15.
Yeah, same.
Although, actually, my introduction to military sci-fi, and a lot of people in my generation could say this, actually, it was actually the Halo books, believe it or not, was our introduction to soft military sci-fi. Me and a lot of friends read the Halo books voraciously, and they were a lot of fun.
Some of them were quite good.
Oh yeah, no, they were, for a long time actually, anything published by Tor, out of like the top 10 sellers they had in any given year, at least 3 or 4, maybe even over half, would be Halo books.
Yeah. I think Full of Reach was my personal favorite.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Fall of Reach was my first one, because it was the first one, which actually, funny enough, Fall of Reach was published and released before the first Halo game came out.
Well, yeah, that's why the advertising for that game was, from the beginning, you know how it ends.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that for the longest time. But let's see, Fall of Reach. Oh man, First Strike was real. I really liked First Strike.
First Strike was great.
Ah, jeez. Yeah, I guess Fall of Reach would have to be my personal favorite. Then there isn't any I hate, or even ones that I dislike, all the way up to let's see, Apollo Breach, The Flood, First Strike, Contact, was it Contact Harp? Ghost of Onyx?
Ghost
The
of
last one
Onyx was all right. Contact Harvest was pretty solid.
Yeah, the last one I read, I think, was Contact Harvest. Because I read Ghost of Onyx and Contact Harvest. I have some of the short stories, and that's about as far as I got. After that, the Halo lore is really, really changed and expanded.
Well, ever since they brought the Travesty in.
Yeah,
Travis.
that did change it, didn't it? When,
The problem with Karen Travis writing anything, and I include Star Wars in this, is that she has extremely heterodox interpretations of the canon. Pretty much any series out there. And so she writes it with her interpretation, and so everyone in the universe thinks the exact same way.
Oh,
Makes no sense. Which is why you see, because she liked Mandalorians a bunch when she was brought to write Star Wars, every single character obsessed over what the Mandalorians were doing, even though there were 3 million of them.
See, Brian, as the biggest professional, or as the professional author here, is there anything like in particular that you know about writing in an already established franchise? Like, I guess like the weight of actually determining where the universe and the story goes when you're put in charge of a book in a franchise. Like if you're hired by, okay, let's not say Disney because Wolf. BattleTech. Let's say you were hired by BattleTech to become one of their authors, right?
Okay.
What would be like your creative process for writing its stories within the BattleTech universe with an already pre-established lore and trying to navigate that while also putting your own creative spin on it? Is it actually different than writing your own like original book in its own original universe like Exceed, or
Yeah,
am I
extremely.
thinking too much into it?
Well, what you're doing is fundamentally misunderstanding the process, because if you are hired on to write an existing franchise, your creative input is highly limited. Okay, it depends on the job. It depends on the job. Okay, because first of all, a gig like that is not going to be like the standard, okay, you write a manuscript, submit it to the publisher, then you work out a royalty split and you retain some rights. It's going to be a work made for hire. Okay? So, yeah, you're going to be doing piecework, you're going to be doing it as a contractor, but nothing you write is going to be owned by you. There's going to be an assignation of ownership and rights, and probably an NDA in your contract. And so they're just bringing you on as basically typewriter monkey. Like, I hate to say it, like unless you're a really big name. But if you're getting hired for a deal like that, and like you're not like a name author, then the publisher's mindset is, okay, we have this slot in our list that needs to be filled. We need someone who can bring it in on time, to spec, without a lot of hassle. And they're going to give you an outline. So I can give you my experience from the one time I've actually done this. The publisher gave me the outline that had already been prepared, gave me like background notes, like here's the world, here's the universe, this is what we'd like to see, and then gave me some required reading. Right? They said, we want you to read this novel because we want this book to be like this novel. And by the way, Martel, it was an Alan Dean Foster novel, incidentally. Which was awesome because I got to read some.
Had this conversation.
Yeah. And the publisher even said, what we want you to do, and what the outline is already set up to do, is follow the structure of this Foster novel beat by beat. Okay? And then the editor basically took everything I wrote and rewrote it.
Yeah.
But
Oh wow.
yeah, but they're like, okay, well here's your money. Right, we're done. Thanks.
It strikes me as it's very much like writing a modern comic book under work for hire.
Oh, totally. Just like Siegel and Schuster.
If you're
the
one of
reason
the
they didn't,
big two.
yeah, the reason they didn't own Superman was they wrote him under a work made for hire contract. Anyway, go ahead.
No, that was it. I kind of cut over you.
It
So
happens.
Bradford says that doing a work for hire contract is just a step above ghostwriting, while Raul says it is ghostwriting. Having experience, what would you say, Brian? Like, is it just a little bit different than ghostwriting, or is it actually essentially ghostwriting in essence?
It's several steps below ghostwriting. Several,
Oh wow,
like an order of magnitude. Do you know what ghostwriters make?
a lot, I imagine.
Add a 0 to the end of what you're thinking about. They make okay, because what a ghostwriter does is when like Andrew Cuomo just got in trouble and he's now having return his advance to Crown, which is a Penguin Random House imprint, who's his publisher and all that. Okay, he didn't actually write that book. The ghostwriter wrote that book. He was given a 7-figure advance, and that is how political books go. Okay, I don't care if it's Sarah Palin or even Donald Trump. He admits in The Art of the Deal, he's like, yeah, this was the guy who actually wrote this. Here's my ghostwriter. Thank you. He did a great job. Yeah, Donald Trump didn't write his book. These guys, these big politicians and business people don't have time to write a book. We all know how long that takes. The ghostwriter gets a substantial, or a comparable but slightly less compensation than the author. Okay? If you really want to make money writing books, ghostwriting's not a bad way to do it. It's just, you have to be able to totally subsume your own artistic preferences and be like, right, I've been hired to do a job of work, I'm going to do it to spec, I'm not going to complain. You got to be able to do that. But if you can, do it.
Well, you heard it here, folks, from a professional author himself. Try to pick up ghostwriting if you can, if you want to make a very good living at writing.
Yeah, now, here's the way to do it if you want to get into ghostwriting. One, you've got to write your own books. And what I would recommend, what I have been told by people in the field is, take a certain approach to writing. Okay, this is going to be counterintuitive to a lot of people here, but if you want to be a ghostwriter, you got to prove you can write to the client's spec, okay? Because it's all work for hire. So you're going to write your own novels, but you are going to write them quickly. You're going to write them to market and to a professional standard, and you're going to write 5 of them and release 5 of them in 1 year. And that is kind of the industry standard number to show prospective clients, hey, I can produce, I can get the job done for you. And then you start building your brand, and you start seeking out clientele. Okay, so it's a longer process. It's a bit of a fork off of the standard sci-fi like 20 to 50K or new pub author track, but it's related. And yeah, you're just going to build the habits of being able to produce consistently every day, please clients, and then you're going to go where the clients are, and they're in nonfiction. Use a service like Racing Snail, for example, or heck, even Fiverr to locate people who are in the market for someone to ghostwrite. and you've also got to know how to approach and market yourself to those people. It is different than trying to sell your book to readers. But they're skills that can be mastered.
And a lot of
Just
this,
take time.
it seems, from what I've perused, is it overlaps a lot with freelancing in general. Where a lot of you can ghostwrite, but you don't have to ghostwrite for, like, Donald Trump or Andrew Cuomo or what have you. You can ghostwrite for corporations, or you can have, what do they call it? Copyright, right? COPYWRITE.
Yeah.
And that can be good money too. And it's a lot of the same skills that overlap.
Yeah, that's right. And one
So,
can lead
plenty of
into
avenues.
one can lead into another. The biggest ghostwriter I know got started by writing copy, and what he did was he figured out how to use his copywriting knowledge to help him attract freelance clients. So he is a copywriter and a ghostwriter and a freelancer who now, rather than waiting for Old Pub to send him assignments, he makes his own.
Oof.
That guy's having trouble staying alive.
Nice work if you can get it.
Yeah, it's freaking amazing work if you
Well,
can get it.
that's a skill stack he had to cultivate.
Yeah, you got to cultivate your skill stack. There's no way around that.
Yeah. The writing, the interpersonal relationships, the getting clients, the pleasing clients, copywriting, marketing, billing, even just collecting on payment can be trouble sometimes. Ask any lawyer. There's a lot of skills that go in, but between copywriting and ghostwriting and whatnot, all those skills overlap. So you learn one, it's kind of like a tripling your return on investment on whatever you invest in learning that skill.
Every skill you learn doubles your chances of success.
Any of you familiar with the author by the name of Sarah Hoyt, Hoyt?
Yes.
I think all of us
Okay,
are.
anything good from her for young girls?
I haven't read any of her stuff. I've got a couple of books in the read stack, but that's the best I can tell you.
Okay, I'm not familiar with her, so sorry, Escape. Seems like no one here knows much.
Yeah, I know, like, some of her books have, like, some, like, lesbian stuff and... Oh. Yeah, some kind of adult content. I don't know that she's really done much for, like, middle grade. She might have. I know she's, like, collaborated with Larry Correia and I think possibly with David Weber, even.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she was one of my fellow Dragon Award winners. Yeah, more adult themed.
Well, so I guess that would be out, Escape, if you're looking for something for your 9 and 12-year-old nieces. Brandon brought up a salient example earlier. The Hobbit is right around that age range. Always a perpetual classic. Let's see.
One point I had a list of science fiction authors. Here we go.
I was going to say Silmarillion, and then I stopped the stories in the Silmarillion.
No, yeah, that might be a little bit dense.
Oh, I was just thinking the Leia Furin.
Oh,
Game
yeah,
of Thrones done better than Game of Thrones.
yeah.
Here.
What's
Very
that
good.
book that's set in a... It's like an anthropomorphic world of animals, but it's actually like a horrifying story. I believe it's called Watership Down or something like that.
Yeah.
No, that's just rabbits, not anthropomorphic.
No, okay, just rabbits. Yeah, but it's like about like cutesy little rabbits, but
I mean, there's nerve gas involved.
Yeah, it's horrifying. I've been told so.
I didn't think the story was that bad, but from what I hear, the movie was traumatizing.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
that's what I was
intense.
thinking. Yeah, the movie Watership Down. Either way, not recommended for your age. But that was something that I was thinking because that would be deceptive on the face of it because it is set in a world of cute fuzzy rabbits. But then brings up nerve gas among many other things. It's like
So-
Fern Gully, but with less hippies.
Or like, what happened there? That was weird. Or like, The Rock with less hippies. Without Sean Connery.
Back when Michael Bay made fun movies.
Hey, I kind of liked his
Someone who
Benghazi
came in
movie.
it- You know, I never actually got to see that one.
It
What was that
super
one?
fun.
It'll
Very
make you
shaky hand,
mad.
but when you're trying to portray something completely confusing, that actually works to the benefit.
Yeah, if you want to get really pissed off, I recommend it.
Yeah,
So-
pissed off at like the political system. Who? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I've been.
Funny.
Oh,
Funny story.
been-
I was actually so the embassy protection group that the U.S. has is called the Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team Regiment, or the USMC.
yeah, the fast teams.
So we had C-130s with fast you're idling on the tarmac waiting for the call. I actually worked with some of the guys who were in those C-130s, like waiting for the call to come.
Oh wow.
Apparently they were just on the field idling for hours.
jeez.
Yeah, somehow that's about right. Are you a military contractor or something? No answer.
No docs.
Something of the sort.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, fair enough.
We are on Discord and YouTube.
Fair enough.
Do not give away any personal info. This goes for everyone.
What?
Don't mean to
Yeah,
jump
fair
down your
enough,
throat,
alright.
but you cannot be too
Apologies for
careful.
asking. Yeah, fair enough.
Absolvote.
Yeah, I should have been considering that. Still though, woof. That is something. Oh jeez. Yeah, somehow that sounds about right. From what little I remember of that growing up around the time. Jeez. Early Weiss and Hickman Dragonlance. I've heard good things about Dragonlance, but I'm not sure it's age appropriate. So I couldn't tell you. Anyone else?
Read the first 3 books, and unlike Tolkien, where it was kind of a widening and then coming back, Weiss and Hickman just throw away characters until they're left with one. I really didn't appreciate it. The books were relatively well written, but it just sort of, it's like the characters I was interested in just kind of vanished at some point during the book prior to the end.
Well, Escape, take that as you will. I make no recommendations one way or the other. Let's see. Now, if you want to get into manga, if you want to give your nieces so much that you just go broke, manga would be a good way to get in, perhaps, if that's an option.
Good way to learn Japanese, actually.
Hmm.
Because the thing about kanji, all the different readings, the onyome, the gonyomi, blah blah blah. The teenage manga lines will write out the kanji, and then they'll write the hiragana pronunciation next to it in parentheses.
Well, that's really helpful.
Well, there you have it.
I need to get a few myself to keep in practice.
That was a discussion we were having in our comic book Discord, that manga can be a nice way to learn Japanese if you're in the right age group. And you have some good recommendations relative to which titles to tag.
Oh boy, Legend of Korra.
Yeah, there's a lot of manga available in English, so you don't even have to do that, like Bradford says. But
Yeah, I was just saying, if you want to learn the language, which
Right.
I'm trying to do right now.
yeah,
Is that just for fun?
I just use Duolingo when I try to learn Japanese.
Actually hoping to get... So, you know about the ESL program by any chance?
Yeah.
English as a second language.
Yep. Japanese government will fly you out, pay you a salary and housing for 3 years to teach English in Japan, and at the end you get to put on your resume that you worked for the Japanese government.
Yeah, I had a buddy who did that, and he
Sounds
recommends
like a
it.
good deal.
Same.
A friend of mine did that back in the 80s. Actually, he did it for part of his church group, I think. And I actually remember he showed me a picture of him way back when in the 80s, actually taking a picture with a bunch of real life Japanese hooligans with what do you call that hairstyle? The pompadours.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pompadours and like
Regency.
the black Prussian style school uniforms with the buttons unbuttoned,
Nice.
straight out of a manga. It was quite amazing to see. Art indeed imitates life, my friends.
Actually, funny story about the school uniforms in Japan. Since late early 1900s history is a particular area of interest. You know how that started?
No idea.
Meiji Restoration, I imagine.
Yes. So, as part of westernization, they decided to copy pretty much everything from the West, including military systems and so on, and to inculcate a martial mindset in the population, they based their school uniforms off of Western military uniforms. So the males would wear army uniforms and the females would wear navy uniforms. And
That explains the sailor uniforms for young girls.
Yep. Which is why, as you said, the Prussian-looking high-collared button uniforms, since that was the uniform for the army of the time, and then the sailor uniform is, well, what sailors wore at the time.
Yes, actually, yeah. The Imperial Japanese Navy was based off the British Royal Navy, and the army was modeled off the Prussian army.
Well, not just based off, the Brits built quite a few of their ships.
That too, but I mean in terms of like organization and structure, also.
Yeah.
They modeled a lot of it off the Royal Navy.
Yep.
Which is as good a navy at the time to model your navy off of, because the American Navy wasn't quite what it is today, or was in the 1940s. I'm not sure about how much it is today.
Well, it was the American Navy that, in a lot of ways, we're responsible for everything that's happened to Japan since the 1840s.
Oh yes, but nowadays it seems you can't go a week without a submarine hitting a mountain under the ocean, or a nuclear missile commander getting arrested for being drunk or drunk driving or something stupid like that. Happens all the time. I'm just like, woof. Navy's hitting rough times.
Yeah. Navy's a hotbed of communism. Always has been. Always will be. Every single country that there has never been a navy.
Funny how often that happens, huh?
Yeah. If you read about the Spanish Civil War, the one branch of the military that went over to the communists, the Navy.
But it's not even a matter of communism. When commanders constantly crash ships into each other, that's not communism. That's just,
Bumper cars.
Eh,
incompetence.
subject for another podcast.
Yeah.
My apologies, Brian. Got a sidetrack.
No, that's fine. It gave me time to read up a little strategy.
Likewise.
But yeah, welcome to the middle cast. Today we're discussing the poor level of preparedness of the Navy and their tendency of Navy throughout time to fall to communism. But no, you can't just leave that hanging. Does anyone have any idea why that is? That they're so susceptible?
Yes. Yes. Because the conditions are very all or one. Unlike in the Army, when a ship goes down, most to all of the people on it are going down with it, including the admirals and the captains. It's very communal, very regimented. Every single facet of the day is planned out weeks in advance, because that's just how it works. So the type of mindset which does well in the Navy is the type of mindset which is most susceptible to communism. That's my theory.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's as good a working theory as any, I suppose. The captain on his ship does have absolute command. That's the way it's always been, even back to ancient times. Actually, here's a funny bit of trivia, just to move slightly away from that. Do you know why a ship's command center is called a bridge?
Why don't you tell us?
I do not.
Alright, here's a funny bit of trivia. So, actually, back in the days of the steam paddle, or the steamship, right, with the two paddles that are on both sides of the ship, they used to cover those with wheels, right, like cowlings. But then, to get the engineers across without having to go across the deck, they would build a bridge that connected the two housings for both paddles. And then eventually, the captain of the ships realized that when you're on that bridge, you actually have the best view of the ship and the surroundings. So that's where the little bridge came from, the bridge of a ship. Because it was actually a bridge over the deck that connected the two paddles.
So that's fairly recent then.
Yep, but before that, when you had those traditional sailing ships, like the ones Columbus took to the Americas, right?
Oh, that's a bad translation. Sorry, I just had to admire
enabled
that.
by chains.
Okay.
Oh, I love old translations. But that technology, the whole steering wheel, like taking the helm, right, with the rudder, that was enabled by a series of ropes and chains. Eventually, what they did with that is they put a small like shed with windows on top of the steering wheel for the ship, and that's where the term wheelhouse comes from, where you say that's not in my wheelhouse, because that's what they called it.
All right. Well,
So
thanks.
do you know where con comes from? Like, take the con, or you have the con.
The con, I don't know where the con comes from, but I do know the term cockpit was also originally a nautical term, actually. Back in ye olden days, even before the days of sail, when you have a small boat, right? The coxswain, or the coxswain, which is Latin for servant of the boat, was the guy who steered the boat with basically a little paddle at the back, right? His area was called the cockpit. And that's where the term cockpit comes from. It was originally a sailing term, a nautical term for small boats.
Now, what about con?
The con?
Yeah, Martel, why don't you...
Actually, I don't know.
Well, I think Martel's going to tell us.
No, I actually have no idea. That's why I was asking.
With a...
I've actually looked this up, but I forget.
According to a quick search, it's not actually known where the term con comes from.
Just sounds cool. It's like, okay.
Yeah, when you say the admiral has the con, or the captain has the con, or a conning officer, yeah.
So we're picking up with the Death Corps here.
Yeah, now...
And they're trying to plan what to do with the Marquis.
Looked like there's some dissent in the ranks.
Yeah, there's kind of a split
Yes,
where,
Ben Wheeler, I am a nerd.
some are following Gustav, and others are just more interested in killing nobles.
Better to ransom them. Unless you're trying to start a succession war, in which case you're going to have to do all
Well, they
It's
are
always a fun time for everyone.
trying to start a succession war. That's what's going on. There are currently 2 claimants for the throne, one of whom is a teen girl, one of whom is an infant. But they
Hey,
have...
Brian, here's a joke.
Wait, hang on. You just said 2 claimants, one's a teen girl, one is an infant.
Yeah.
So, we're going to get the fantasy version of Carlist Spain.
I'm not familiar with that.
1840 Spain, Saliqua, the, in my view, legitimate claimant to the throne was the Infante Don Juan Carlos de Bourbon. The side that ended up winning was his older, this gal named Queen Isabella of Spain. Was an absolute disgrace to the name, let's put it that way. Ran the country into the ground.
Woof.
Well, we don't ever actually find out what happens in the long run, because we're watching the events as they unfold, but yeah, the setup is basically that. Although they are holding the Marquis, and while they're expecting a ransom demand to come down, it has not as of yet. So no one's sure what the status of the Marquis is, if he's still alive, why they want him. There's some weirdness going on. We'll find out.
Ben Wheeler says that the term con comes from conning tower.
Yeah, where does the conning tower come from? But thank you, Ben.
Say, John, who wins in a civil war?
It's a raised portion of the deck, formerly for navigation into direct attack.
So when they say you have the con, that just means like you have command of the ship, I suppose. Makes sense.
Yeah.
As for its origins, that's a good question.
Probably because there were actually two bridges in most Dreadnought and later era ships, and a lot of commanders found that it was easier to direct the ship and the battle from the more forward navigation bridge than the more armored but less visibly advantageous main bridge. Yes, we are nerds.
Oh, yes.
You're watching Final Fantasy Tactics. You have no room to talk.
That's right. Live stream for nerds, by nerds.
We are men of varied interests, which are all invariably.
Yep.
Fire and Ice Saga. Not familiar with that. Sword of
Game of
Truth.
Thrones.
Not familiar with that. The Shannara series. Seems like a bog standard fantasy. It seems like almost everyone's read the Shannara series.
Never heard of it.
Really? Never heard of it?
Nope.
That's basically up there with Wheel of Time. The Sword of Shannara?
So, the way that I got books when I was growing up was my parents would take me to the library and I would just walk up and down the section. And it was a fairly small library, so I had books on the interlibrary loan system. So, unless it was on the shelf or it was one of the books listed in the front page with books by this author, books by this publisher, I never heard about it.
Shame. Well,
Sh-
maybe not
Shn-
ashamed. I can't tell if it's good or not.
Shannara came out in the late 70s after Lord of the Rings made a big impact, and essentially the first official versions were coming out. And Shannara was written very quickly to capitalize on that. In fact, you'll find an incredible number of parallels to Lord of the Rings in sort of Shannara. It's not a great book. It's not a horrible book, but I I judge a book as far as would I go back and read it again? Would I take the time to read the book again? Sword of Shannara is not a book I would read again.
Yeah, Ben Wheeler in the chat says it. Genre is so boring. That's basically everything I've heard about the Sword of Genre. So take that as you will, Escape Velo. It's like eating Weetabix without sugar and skim milk.
Does anyone actually drink skim milk, or is that just like one of those the government will pay you to pour milk down drain tubes?
Yeah, I think that's probably where it comes from.
If it's regarding the dairy industry, that's probably a safe bet to take.
Okay, trying to play this one a bit more methodically. So we've got some monks and archers and knights, so these guys can hit hard.
There's something so charming about this art style that I just don't see in games nowadays, for the most part.
Yeah, AA was remarking on that.
Yeah, I think I called it soothing the other night.
Much as I love Three Houses, I actually miss the old 2D sprite attack animation. Those ones had character.
This to me just exudes charm in a lot of ways that your average, what does David B. Stewart call it? The mud genre, that the mud genre could never hope to match.
That he
All those
does.
$100 million graphics, mocap rigs.
The problem on that end is that the video game industry has always had that us too syndrome, where they're desperately trying to be recognized as just as valid as literature they would. And about the mid-2000s, they realized that they could hypothetically get photorealistic graphics, and they've just spent all their time since getting there. And now that they've achieved it, they have no idea how to make an actual game.
It was funny when I saw the trailer for the Uncharted film. I said, my friend's like, oh hey, look, they're making an Uncharted film. Well, whatever. I'm like, so they're making Uncharted 6 or 5 or whatever. He's like, no, they're making like an actual like film in theaters, you butt face.
It's like when people ask Hideo Kojima, hey, are you going to make a Metal Gear Solid movie? He says, it already is a movie.
Basically.
Yeah.
Hideo Kojima did want to get into the film industry, and the gaming industry was kind of his last resort.
We can tell.
Yeah, he's definitely got
Evidently,
frustrated
the
director
Japanese-
syndrome.
Yeah. Apparently, the Japanese film industry is very hard to break into.
Yep.
I think you just need to be really wooden. I don't know. Sorry, the Korean film industry is just way better.
I still need to watch many Korean films, actually, besides Train to Busan, which is obligatory watching.
Yes, you need to watch many Korean films.
Let's see. Let's see. I've only seen Train to Busan and what was that one? Brotherhood of War, the one about the two brothers on the opposite sides of the Korean War. Um, Other than that, no, I haven't seen any Korean films. I do want to watch what's that movie called? Old Boys, I think.
Yeah, that is a movie.
It's probably one of the more famous ones.
That is a movie that everyone tells you must watch, and they're right, and then you must never watch again.
Which one is this?
Old Boy.
I'm just gonna skip to the end and not watch it.
No, you need to watch it, and then never watch it again. You must. Watch it with a friend.
That's what I said about Joker when it came out.
What about Joker?
Absolutely great movie that I will never watch again.
Yeah, it's basically Old Boy. Only worse. So like it's the movie you will watch with a buddy and enjoy, and then you will both laugh nervously and agree never to speak of it again.
Oh, one of those movies, huh?
Oh yeah, it's that movie.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, I'll definitely add that to the watch list. Because I've seen Joker. I liked it, but I felt like it was mostly hyped up because it was more like Taxi Driver, just with a DC character in it. So
Yeah,
like DC hyped it up.
it was clearly a script for another movie, just like some character study that they slapped clown paint on so they could sell it. Yeah.
Yeah. That being said, it was still a very well done film that once again I will never watch again.
Indeed.
It's just sad that the film couldn't make it on its own. It had to have a superhero tag to it to actually get some visibility from the producers.
Yeah. Now, Dune. That's a film that actually has rewatch value. Surprisingly.
Doom or Dune?
Dune.
Oh yeah, who doesn't like
The
seeing
newest
Sting in a Speedo? There is one Dune movie.
I'm talking about the newest one.
Yes, the one with Sting from 1983.
I beg to differ.
Oh,
I would say the David
request
Lynch
denied.
one, but that's redundant because it's the only one. Yeah, I would say the David Lynch Dune, but that's redundant because it's the only Dune,
Yeah.
right?
There was that mini-series.
Patrick Stewart in his finest role.
Oh, you mean that dinner theater production that the Syphilis channel aired? Yeah, it was charming.
The guild does not take your orders. That one.
Does anyone notice that a lot of the names in Dune have big, like Hiroyuki Tamino energy from like Gundam Universal Century? Like Duncan Idaho and Gurney Halleck don't sound out of place in Gundam at all. At least to me. I've kind of noticed that.
Never really thought of that, but I think that's
I'm just saying, yeah.
that's a compliment to Tomino. So who else is
I would
almost
say I've never had
dead?
a problem with the names in Gundam. Although the name Bannerger Lynx from Gundam Unicorn kind of seems strange to me, not gonna lie.
Seabook Arno is my
But
favorite
Bannerger-
weird Gundam name.
Brian, what would you say to writers who get hung up really hard on names and what to name their characters?
I would say I'm going to concentrate on doing that. Okay. Just always have a pocket notebook with you or an app on your phone, and you will come across interesting names and just write them down, because it's not so much a matter of brainstorming, it's a matter of, at least for me, fitting the right name I've already got in my ammo belt to the right character. But I'm kind of lucky. I've never really had that problem. My characters just kind of step out from behind the curtain in my brain and introduce themselves. So I just automatically know who they are. That's kind of my strong suit. But yeah, carry a notebook.
Actual advice.
Yeah, I have mine here actually. I came across some names recently that I wrote down. Okay, here we go. So in the last week, this is what I've got in my little pocket notebook here. Bexar, Armiger, Darlow, Grendon. So you'll probably see those showing up, like at least one of them at some point here. Can't even remember where I found them. I didn't know that. I just wrote them down.
Yeah. In my experience, from people I've talked to who were aspiring authors, a lot of them probably put a little too much effort in names in terms of like mental energy and just getting hung up on the names that don't sound right to them.
Yes, they
If
did.
you can name your character Bandage or Lynx or what have you, you're probably fine. The reader will, unless it's too, how should I put this? Unless you name your character like Stupid Buttface or something along those lines, you're probably fine.
You're also probably 12. But anyway, not that there's anything wrong with that. I think
that
the
too.
Aragon guy.
Or John Scalzi.
Or Chuck Wendig. I actually have some.
That's just
Yeah, he does.
pure eccentricity.
I actually have a couple of World of Darkness supplements by Chuck Wendig.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's pretty
First
weird.
artifacts.
I'm not sure what to name. Oh, Chuck Wendig. Sorry, I thought we were talking about that. I was thinking of Chuck Tingle.
Even more cursed.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I can only imagine what it was like for Brian reading that Chuck Wendig excerpt that everyone reads about on Twitter. The wibbly wobbly, perkly jerkly Star Wars excerpt that he wrote. That was, to me, that was like reading a hex from the Book of the Dead. I was afraid I cursed myself or someone I love.
I read it here on the show.
Baratan, evil.
No, he mustn't. It is only legend. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't understand how an author like that. Yeah.
I feel
I
like
mean,
a tome like
I-
that. Go ahead, sorry.
I hated the Karen Travis and Troy Denning Star Wars books to the point where I stopped reading the EU at that point. And I felt sorry for Aaron Alston getting thrown in a trilogy with them because you could tell he was desperately trying to fix things and failing his time. But at least they were middling to good on the technical level of writing. The people getting Star Wars contracts these days fail at that.
Well, just goes to show how low the standards have dropped, huh?
Yeah.
I remember. It's
Yeah,
not a drop in standards. They're writing to the standard they're told to write to.
Right.
It's just
Mea culpa,
It's not
Brian is
the-
right.
about what? Well, what I'm right about
Yeah, I
is
was gonna
that
say-
they're writing to the standard put to them by the Death Cult because they're writing litanies. It's not even propaganda. It's missionary work. It's evangelism. But with our fixation on objectivity, we don't see it, right? We think that, oh, this word was used. I know what this word means. And no, you're wrong. It doesn't mean that to them. To our overlords.
Yeah, Silly me, I almost thought that Chuck Wendig for a second had a modicum of creative freedom. Then I realized, no, there's about like 20 editors and people above him who approved of that screed he wrote because, like Brian said, it is a death cult screed. It is their litany. Everyone saw it and said, yes, that is excellent. That is exactly what we were looking for, and then he published it.
Well, because they...
Looking at the wall or
death cult
what?
mind doesn't operate based off of knowledge, it operates based off of phonetics, if that makes sense. They don't listen to words, they listen to the sound, let their minds get turned into a mush, and that's when the pro whatever it is that they're pushing at the time gets slipped in.
Yep.
Using the term death cult mind. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's how Hollywood movies work. They basically hypnotize you, they get you sucked into the flow of the movie, the soundtrack, all that stuff, and then they slip in whatever it is they're pushing.
Yep.
Death cult authors do the same with literature. Which is why if you've ever seen that Chuck Wendig, it's Wednesday, time to go ahead and imitate it. It's just weird sounds written down. And yet it's perfectly intelligible to them.
Yep.
Oh, it took me a moment to realize what you were talking about. I'm like, what? What is he talking? Oh, yeah.
Because you're thinking logically. That's where you're going wrong.
You know, it's funny, Martel. You use the term death cult minds. That's almost a contradiction in terms.
No. It's a part of the soul. These creatures do have souls, at least at the start.
I was gonna say I was gonna say they have forms, but I don't know if you've seen some of them. That's debatable. They're like deflated footballs or something.
That's why I said at the start. Now, since I'm a bit more on the philosophy side, and Aristotle neglected to go into demonic possession, is it possible to renounce your immortal soul? Like, have your immortal soul leave this coil while the body remains behind, fully ambulatory and capable of speech?
Shooting from the hip, I'm gonna say no. Because Aristotle is right. The soul's the form of the body, so that'd be like asking, can a baseball can it renounce being a sphere and still be round?
Right, I was thinking of so 3 parts to the soul. A friend of mine quibbles with my use of the term divine to describe the apprehensive portion, but that's the term Aristotle used.
Yeah.
Can you give that up and essentially descend into being a human animal without the humanity?
Oof. Well...
An NPC, as it were.
Well, okay, well, all we know is the rational capacity can be damaged, right? Like, whenever you use something for a purpose other than what it's intended, you risk destroying it. And human beings are made for glory. We're made for virtue, so anytime we commit a vicious act, it's like, grinding the gears of your car, or it's like using a toaster as a doorstop, right? You do some damage, and that's why sin does in fact make you stupid. So, I mean, there are bestial people who are just like completely venal, completely overcome by their passions. But I mean, Satan is okay. So he's the most evil, rational being there is. Like, he's as evil as it's possible to be, but even he still has reason to the degree that he exists. So I would say not totally. That you couldn't bring about a change in substance, but you could bring about a qualitative or accidental change to the point that it would be hard to tell the difference on the part of a third-party observer, if that makes sense. I'm just spitballing.
So the capacity doesn't go away, but it becomes so atrophied that it's practically non-existent.
That's what we seem to observe, don't you think? Like, think of just like the most depraved serial killers or druggies or sex fiends, right?
Well, I'm thinking more of, well, that's kind of the Screw Tape letters. Screw Tape proposes a toast talking about the greatness of sinners being close to the greatness of saints, and that they're both great. It's the Bugmen, and I've come up with the term insect man to describe their oriental Bugmans. The type where they have no desires beyond to be a pig wallowing at the trough. As long as physical needs are sated, they have no thought or contemplation beyond that.
Yeah, that's sloth. So, what wrath is to a murderer, or gluttony is to a glutton, Bugmanism is sloth. And for those who aren't familiar, most people mistake sloth with laziness, but that's not the. Oh, there's a pretty cool sword fight going on. Okay, we'll leave Gustav there for a minute as a paperweight and address this question, because it's a good question. So what sloth really is it's a sorrow at apprehending the good, but not feeling you're able to reach it, so you just give up. That's what sloth is. And that's the Bugman disease.
Okay. Yeah, that's also, as a nihilist, something like that is my mortal enemy.
It's a form of despair.
It's a specific renunciation of greatness. Qua greatness.
Right, yeah, so industry is not the virtue that's most directly opposed to sloth. Magnanimity is the virtuous desire to seek great things. Oh, hey, and I think that's the marquee over there on the floor. I'll have to see if he's okay.
Okay. Looks a little under the weather there.
Ha. He just needs to go, have some wine, play some football. He'll feel better.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be fine. You can walk that off.
Take a brief pause in our university studies so we can do a little bit of gaming now.
Yeah. Well, hey, the chat is digging the bants. So thank you, chat. I haven't checked the chat for a while. I see Ben Wheeler's taking vitamin D. Excellent, so am I. Make sure to take oil-based only because it's the only kind your body can absorb. That is not medical advice. It's just my personal testimonial from what I do myself. Wouldn't ask you to do what I don't do myself, chat. Oh, no. If the soul can leave the body behind while the body still lives, we officially enter Kingdom Hearts territory. Yeah, that alone is a disproof. That right there. Okay. So yeah, back to Vigraf here. Oh, and he hit Augus's Berserk button. Oh. Well, there we have it, folks. Vigraf answered the question. And he's letting him go. Okay.
I mean, if you're cornered and you have a hostage, that seems like a smart thing to do.
Aha. Plot thickens. So they never wanted to kidnap him, apparently. You could cut the tension with that sword.
Yep.
And he gone.
Get out right out of there.
The leader seems confident the death core will just destroy itself. I mean, it's basically doing that. They already had a schism.
Yep.
Former leader's line right there.
Yeah, it tends to happen with those groups that had some higher purpose and turned to banditry for one reason or another.
Hmm.
It doesn't get any better after that. Like with the Sandinistas.
Hmm.
Hey guys, who wins in a civil war?
The people outside the country.
Mhm.
Exactly. I was going to say the answer is nobody, but that's also an acceptable answer. Yes, my family can attest civil wars are a hoot. Perhaps even a hoot and a half.
Well, hopefully we don't make it 2 full hoots anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
If it's gonna happen, I'd like it to happen while I still have news.
Well, it could be
My
argued,
family's
though.
already seen it once. I'd rather not see it again.
Yeah. Anyone who is saying bring on Civil War 2.0 is a moron. Although it could
They
be
don't
argued.
know what civil war is.
It could be argued we've never had one here because it really, what we call the American Civil War was just a continuation of the Revolution. It's technically an
Yeah,
insurrection.
you'd be much better served to go look at the Spanish Civil War.
Hmm.
For recent stuff, yes. However, Brian, 600,000 of our own died on American soil, so if that's not a civil war, I'm not sure what is.
Well, Civil War is when 2 factions of the ruling class fight each other.
Yes, plantation owners versus abolitionists. Using Irish mercenaries and a bunch of poor Alabama farm boys as their cannon fodder.
I'm not fully sold on the plantation owners actually being in the ruling class at that point. Like, the Yankees... Massachusetts had largely conquered the United States by that point, at least intellectually.
Well,
But again...
that's just it. At that point, it was a part of the ruling class which was in the decline, trying to retain their power, versus a part of the ruling class in the ascent, trying to cement power.
It's a good argument. I will ponder this.
These things through.
Yeah.
It's something to think about for sure.
Well, it's just, if you actually look at what each side was fighting for, like, the people in control of the Confederacy were fighting to hold slaves. The people actually doing the bleeding for the Confederacy, most of them had never even seen a slave in their life, too poor for it. And on the other side, Lincoln and the rest were fighting to preserve the Union. Didn't care one whit about the slaves. Whereas the people actually doing the bleeding were fighting, as Christ died to make men holy, let us die to make men free.
Ugh.
I mean, were a lot of Northern soldiers actually dying to free the slaves? even though Lincoln didn't declare like how many years was it into the war when Lincoln actually issued the Emancipation Proclamation?
A bit. Well, if they weren't fighting to free the slaves, what were they fighting
To impose
Free
their...
slaves, of course. Preserve the Union.
for? Yeah, there was. Since we're talking about sci-fi, there was a wonderful sci-fi series where a couple of the main characters are having a conversation before they become enemies. One of them has said, of course the War of the Roses was about the color of the rose. The other says, obviously it wasn't, it was about political reasons. And the response is, it was absolutely about the color of a rose. Wars might be declared by old men, but they're fought by young men who require some higher ideal to believe in than mere politics or economic gain.
And it's apropos you bring up the War of the Roses because the reason that the North was fighting in the American Civil War was as the final round in the English Civil War. If you look at where the populations of the North and the South came from, it's the Roundheads and the Cavaliers all over again. And
Really
Round-
now?
yes, and the Roundheads. Yeah, look at a map. I posted it on Twitter. The descendants of the Roundheads could never get over the fact that so many presidents were from Virginia that when it came to a popular vote, or at least a vote of the Electoral College, they weren't chosen and their rivals were. So the Civil War was to break the grip of the South on the presidency forever.
And
Look
the
it up.
hilarious thing is the Scottish part of the English Civil War is also represented in America.
Yep.
If you look at the states where they settled, as well as the Irish.
That is fascinating. When I think of Irish in America, I mostly think of I don't know how recent this trend was, but I think of like Massachusetts, right? Boston, the Kennedys and whatnot. But I'm not sure if that actually went back all the way to the Civil War. So, not sure how accurate my image is to that. Where did the Irish mostly settle around that time, you said?
Rust Belt.
Rust Belt? Oh, interesting.
Scots were mostly in Appalachia, and then Scots-Irish in Appalachia / the Missouri area.
Isn't that where bluegrass music comes from? You're right. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Well, something to think about, that's for sure.
Well, that's right. Swing by for Final Fantasy, stay for the history lesson.
I might
You'll
actually
learn where
use
the term
that.
bridge comes from, and yeah, you'll learn where the term bridge comes from, and you'll learn the true nature of the American Civil War is actually just an echo of the British Civil War or the English Civil War.
With a brief digression into nihilism and Aristotle's De Anima as it pertains to these deadly sins.
Just to keep it fresh.
Bradford is right. We've been dealing with the curse of Cromwell ever since.
Oh yeah, a lot of Germans, but they couldn't really be called part of the English Civil War. They're just kind of adopted into it. Since you ever hear that thing about how the Normans were genetically Norse but culturally French?
Mm-hmm.
German Americans are genetically German and culturally English. Or, well, culturally American, since I would argue that we're sufficiently developed to be our own distinct culture.
Not that you would know it from our politicians who never defend it.
Well, that's because our politicians aren't American.
Yeah, funny how that works.
The present state is neither of, by, nor for the people. It's an occupational, well, I won't say occupational, but it's one of those imperial governments from elsewhere. Washington, D.C. is its own separate culture.
It's for certain.
So right now this trick isn't working. Oh wait, I keep selecting no.
Yeah, roll.
Has anyone seen actually a videotaped interview with a Civil War veteran back in I want to say maybe the 1920s?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fascinating bit of history. For any of you in the chat who haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Absolutely fascinating to see.
The one I saw was actually 2 Confederate veterans talking about their experiences.
Yes, that's the one I saw actually. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's telling when you go. It's telling when you actually go into the motivations of the individual soldiers who fought in the war.
Well, generally speaking, no matter which side you're on for any given conflict, the average person isn't thinking, yes, we are the evil empire and I'm going to advance it.
Sorry, I'm now thinking of the British comedy duo doing the skit. But we're not the bad guys, are we?
Speaking of magnanimity, my
I
ambition
love
is to be
this
the first to actually do that. Well, yes, we are the evil army. Like we are coming to kick your puppies. What are you gonna do about it? I don't know. Just to change things up.
I mean,
We have no
No.
mercy, right?
yeah, it's
You know-
funny you should bring that up because Thucydides, the Melian dialogues,
Oh yes.
I
The strong
absolutely
do what they
love the
can.
way that the Athenian representative concludes them.
The strong
You
do
ask
what
by
they can.
What right? Yep. You ask by what right we come to raise your city, destroy your crops, kill your men, and take your women into children into slavery. We do this because we are strong and you are weak. The strong do what they wish, and the weak suffer what they must.
Realpolitik in a nutshell.
That's
I
where
just
we're at.
love every time the Athenians talk in that book because they start pretty much every conversation with, let us not quibble about how we got an empire. The fact of the matter is we have got one.
Well, and that's the
Brian
position.
is a JRPG boss confirmed.
Well, that's why the Athenian Empire is really the best historical analog for the United States today, right? We're an empire that
Absolutely.
yeah, doesn't like to admit we're an empire, likes to claim we're spreading democracy, but exerts authority through controlling the coinage, like Athens did through the Delian League, right? They controlled the mint on Delios. Only we don't have any Spartans to stop us.
Yeah. Yeah, the better analogy would be Athens if Athens had brought all of Greece into its quote-unquote alliance
Yeah.
and was eyeing up Sicily. Which, heck, NATO even is pretty much the perfect analogy to the Delian League because nominally independent, and yet when we say frog, they jump.
Right.
Ben Wheeler, I think, brings it up right when Pompey Magnus said, "Do not quote laws to us. We carry swords."
Yep. The Latins had a number of pithy quotes for that sort of thing. Legis coelum inter arma. My personal favorite, Vae Victis.
I think Aaron Schuff says it best. That Brian is a JRPG
remember that
final
one from,
boss confirmed.
Legacy of Kain. Remember when I don't know if anyone played Legacy of Kain back in the day, but that was his war cry. He'd shout that.
Vae Victis.
Yep.
Very nice.
Made all the more funny in that it wasn't a Roman who said it.
I have Blood Omen on my computer. Haven't played it yet. I need to. Is it Legacy of Kain Blood Omen or Blood Omen Legacy of Kain? I think there's some confusion with the naming convention for that series.
mean, if China means that China wants to be bigger, stronger Athens. If he means in terms of international ambitions, press X to doubt. China's always been insular. I mean, they're interested in like Africa due to natural resources because it's ripe for the plucking, but they've never been expansionist. Once they had their landmass, they were pretty much.
China's always been interested in China.
I'm going to have to disagree heavily on that because, yes, they were very uninterested in expansion. So was Japan. And something very similar happened to both of them. China, in particular, has spent the last 150 years getting sliced up by every other major power. So now they're the major power, and they figure it's time to get some of their own. They have no interest in exporting their culture, which is why their empire will not last throughout history the way, say, Rome did. But they will absolutely turn others into tributary states.
I mean, if we're talking about lasting through history, Rome isn't around, but China still is. And for all intents and purposes, the modern nation of China is still an empire. Like, if you look at the original, if you look at the original map of where the Chinese people and culture came from, they came from the Central Plains between north of the Yangtze River and south of the Yellow River, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you had the Qin, who basically unified the core states. That's where the term the Middle Kingdom comes from those Central Plains and those core states. Then the Qin fell after about 15 years, and then the Han came in, and then they not only unified the Middle Kingdoms, they went down south all the way to Vietnam. That's where you get the Cantonese from. That's why they don't speak their own languages anymore. For like 2,000 years, they speak Chinese. And then they went west, where you see the Uyghurs today, Xinjiang province and Gansu province, through the Tarim Basin and the western deserts around Tibet. They had those for over 2,000 years too, or just about 2,000 years. For all intents and purposes, China is an empire still. And they've done a very good job over 2,000 years of Sinicization and essentially wiping out over... In the south alone, they were called the 100 Tribes because they were 100 different tribes, all with their own languages and culture, that are essentially gone for all intents and purposes.
Woo.
A couple words are left in Cantonese, but that's about it. And the Uyghurs are more or less going along the same roads now. And that's to say nothing of Tibet, which is a rather modern addition to the nation of China. So the Chinese are still very much an empire, still very much around. With regards to Rome, no one speaks Latin. Well, okay, most people don't speak Latin, but a lot of people speak Chinese.
And there's one canton in Switzerland where it's still the official language. But yeah, the names change. Like you can go from we're gonna call the emperor chairman now, but here's the new boss, same as the old boss.
Yeah, funny how that works.
I mean, that's why the Soviets never got along with the Chinese, because like you're doing communism wrong, and they're like, no, we're doing it right for us.
For us.
Yeah.
And then the Great Leap Forward. Just ignore that.
Yeah. Nothing to see here.
That didn't happen. Whoops.
But now China is going to get old. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to agree with Bradford Walker in the chat.
Yeah. Like, if you take our troubles, China has a lot of our troubles on crystal meth.
By my approximation, they have about 180 million. There's no prospects for this.
Yeah. So China is in an interesting spot geopolitically right now themselves. So, short story, no one wins right now in geopolitics.
Yeah, China's going to get old before they get rich, but After that, they're going to get Christian, which is going to be super interesting. I think God has
Oh yes.
many plans for that.
If. And that's a big if.
Oh no, they're going to be the biggest Christian country in the world by 2045. It's pretty much baked into the cake.
Actually, yeah, Brian's right. I remember reading about that.
Assuming that they're still a single country by then.
Oh,
Whatever lands
curveball.
and nations occupy territory China.
Yeah.
Well, that'll carry on. Regardless of whatever lines you draw on a map, those trends will carry on. So,
And there's also China's apparent penchant for secular investiture, which worked out so well for us the first time.
God
Yep.
can
it
draw
helps that
straight with
they
crooked
destroyed
lines.
a lot of their own.
Sorry, say again, bro?
God can draw straight with crooked lines.
Oh yes. So Chan asks in the chat. Now the real question is, when does Japan become Christian?
How about...
Well, inshallah, immediately.
Sorry?
Inshallah, immediately. As with every
Amen.
country on Earth.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I was like, is next week good for you guys? We could hop a boat. We'll succeed where Francis Xavier and Maximilian Kolbe somewhat failed. We'll complete their work.
Is anyone here familiar with the name of Saint Peter Kiba?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Possibly.
Yeah, his story was just fascinating to me because I remember reading his story. He was a Japanese Catholic or Japanese Christian under the Jesuits, right? He wanted to become a priest, but the priests there in Japan said no. So he decided to sail to China, and then from China sail to India, and from India walk up through Iran, made a pit stop in Jerusalem, then sailed all the way in the Mediterranean from Jerusalem or Israel to Rome, studied to be a priest, and then went back to Japan to evangelize and became a martyr.
Wow. Now, let's see.
Thank
Well, praise God for the grace of martyrdom made me the seat of the church. But question in chat from Omega Katana. Can you tell me how China will become Christian or accept monotheism? Yeah, well, I mean, they are. And the reason is that what's the number one way that the major religions are spread? It's not through evangelization, it's through procreation. It's parents handing on the faith to their children, and that gets into really what I think is the major area where the boomers in the West failed. But nah, it's the relaxation of the one-child policy, dude. Not only can families have 2 kids now, but people who are religious are the most likely to do that because they're not as laser focused on materialism or career, right? So they're like, since the one-child policy was released, Christians have just started outbreeding communists and handing on the faith to their kids. So that's the major way that it's growing. And from like 1974, when the restrictions on Christianity were relaxed, until the last figures we have, which I think are 2018, Christianity went from like 0.25% of the population to 4%, which doesn't sound that impressive until you realize there are over 1 billion people. So, like, China almost already has more Christians than the US. Like, they might already. They might have already beaten us, like, today. We'll have to wait till the next figures come out. But, yeah, I mean, as long as Chinese Christians keep having kids at the current rate, they're just going to be the biggest Christian country on Earth by 2045, and they're going to become a majority Christian country by, like, the end of the century. So that's how.
By your leave, if I can address something that I saw in chat, which
Yeah.
irritates me. The bit about Nagasaki. Um, there's a certain theory on our side of the internet that Truman ordered Nagasaki to be bombed specifically because it was the center of Japanese Christianity. That is almost impossible because Nagasaki was simply a horrible, horrible, horrible set of coincidences. In the first place, it was a tertiary target. It was number 5 or 6 on the list of potential targets. It wasn't even the target they were supposed to bomb that day. It was just that the weather was so horrible over the rest of the ground that they went.
I haven't seen anyone posit that he deliberately bombed it because it was Christian. I've only heard that he bombed it and it was Christian.
If I have, it's just something that irritates me a bit.
That's fair.
Oh, and we weren't even supposed to bomb the civilian center. We were supposed to bomb a small naval arsenal in the outskirts of the city. It's just that there was cloud cover over the target, there was a gap in the clouds, and the crew reported that it just so happened to be over their target. More likely, they figured this thing's a city buster, anywhere will do, and wound up dropping it straight on the civilian center.
Yeah, and wasn't Nagasaki a bad target anyway because of the coastal cliffs basically funneled most of the energy of the explosion out to sea?
Yes, the bomb was much more powerful than the one on Hiroshima, but because of the cliffs, the damage was about the same actually as Hiroshima or comparable. So its geography in many ways saved it, or saved some of it at least.
Now, if you hear to my theory about World War II, I can absolutely believe that Lucifer was directly responsible for that. But
Man, never underestimate that.
Would that be the Russia-German pact was it 35?
Not quite sure what you're referring to.
I'm your tag back to Lucifer. There's a theory that there was the Russian German. Oh, I can't think of the name of it now.
Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact.
Yes, the pact was signed on a specific day, which was a.
It was August 23rd, 1939.
Hallmark of it. Okay, 39. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. My take on World War II is it was God's punishment on the entire modern world, given that the only people in charge of any country who could be considered good in any way was Mussolini and Franco. One of them didn't join the war, survived, peacefully handed off power. The other joined the war and lost the mandate of heaven, and we all know what happened to him.
Yep.
Yeah, he went to heaven, according to Padre Pio.
Well, yes, after having lost the throne and his life.
Oops.
Although I think that the whole purgatory thing was mostly because he had a mistress, and I mean, he was Italian. Pretty sure the first one's free.
Well, I know what they say, Saturday night is for the wives, or Friday night's for the girlfriends, right? Not that I'm advocating anything, but they do say that, the Italians.
That sounds very Italian.
You know, as long as you don't make a scene, right? As long as you respect everyone's boundaries, you follow the rules. There are rules for these things, okay? It's an unspoken understanding. But no, adultery is wrong. But it's like
Do not do that.
it's like an Anglo-German thing. There are cultural differences, but yeah. I mean, it's also probably why.
Well, that's because.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's because the Anglo-German side of things is stretching back to the old Germanics, even when they were pagan, incredibly legalistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they would break oaths constantly, but they would never break oath.
Oh, rules lawyers.
Just find the loophole in the wording. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the Vikings in particular were. There was one incident where a Viking was besieging a castle in England, accepted like 100 pounds of silver to leave, and swapped places with another Viking that had taken a similar deal with another castle a day's ride away. So they just switched off and besieged the other castle.
Man, a Viking would be the worst person to play D&D with, because first of all, not only would he just min-max and twist every rule to his advantage, he'd probably constantly be correcting you like, no, a short sword doesn't work like that. No, an axe is a terror weapon, you've got to keep it moving, and just like be just nitpicking all the time. It'd be super annoying, I bet.
See, this is why you never let 3rd edition onto the table. It's a rules lawyer, written for rules lawyers. You got to go 1st edition. That you minimize that possibility that way.
Yeah, and that cultural heritage is why every single side in America seems to think that if we just write the law using this specific wording, there will be no escape from it, and everyone will do exactly what we need them to do with the law. You saw that with the Federalist Papers, you see that now.
Yeah, legal positivism is a heck of a drug.
Yeah, whereas the Italians, Romans, and Greeks from pagan times till now, it's like, yeah, we made this promise. Yeah, we broke it. You gotta do anything about it?
We have swords. Yeah, it's what they say about, or they at least used to say about the difference between European, especially like continental Napoleonic law and Anglo-American law, which is you guys, meaning us. You have lots of little laws, and you enforce them all to the letter, whereas we just have like a few big laws, and we're more or less lenient on how they're enforced. There's a lot of leeway.
Yeah.
Anyone who proposes the use of 4th edition is summarily executed. Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit, and that here's what I'll say. Now, wait before you jump on me DMs. 4th edition D&D is not inherently a bad game.
None of the editions are inherently a bad game.
Hold on. I asked you to wait. Thank you. But it's not D&D is the problem. If they had called it like World of Warcraft, the tabletop experience, that'd be fine, because it's basically an MMO in pen and paper form, but it is not Dungeons and Dragons, and that's its problem. It's mislabeled. Okay, I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just going to embrace my Aritex, because here I play Axe.
Fair enough.
Axe is a good game.
Good system.
Yeah,
But no.
good system.
Hey, what were you going to say, though?
Very, very nice for scaling.
Oh, no. The systems aren't inherently bad. The culture is unknown to most players today. Why things are played the way they're played. That I think is the biggest challenge. I think having been a 5e tester, while I didn't like the system, I could see that if you removed a little bit of the cruft from it, it was still a viable system. You have to do some work with it. 4 was, I didn't really play it because I'd been burned on 3. But all the 3.x was min-maxing. What you're seeing in a lot of the game systems is the potential for abuse. The challenge that 3, 4, and 5 had is they're easily abusable systems, where 1st edition is much less so.
Yep. Anyhow, I've got to get to bed. I had a long day full of taxing mental work, a lot of which was working on the Comet Frame Exceed RPG, so that is rapidly nearing completion. I got the list of characters done, so We now have all the stats for the main characters in the books, as well as some grunts, if you want to use those. And now I just need to transcribe the stats for the combat frames and aircraft and other mech in the first book, and then give it one more polishing pass, and it's done.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And
Very nice.
I hope to share my joy with you. I'm always thinking about my readers and my players while I'm working on this. I want it to be good for you guys, which is why it's taken a little longer than expected, but hopefully you'll be pleased with the results.
I eagerly anticipate it.
Good.
Indeed.
And then we will also play test the new rules that aren't yet in the book. The S story arc rules. So that should be a good time.
Sounds like a fun time.
Yep, and because the book will be out to backers soon, and then available for general purchase, you and everyone listening will be able to run your own games set in the Xseed universe. But anyway, I'm going to call it there. So this has been episode 4 of Final Fantasy Tactics Retrospective here on Geek Gab. If you liked it, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe. We keep reminding you. I know Daddy Warpig reminds you every week. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon so you know when there's a new episode. Also check out the regular Saturday show with DW and Dornall. And check out my books below if you're new to Comet Frame Xseed. Now is a great time to start. The first book's only 99 cents. Come on, you again, got no excuse. Check out let's see, guests. What do any of you have that you would like to flog at this juncture? Go ahead.
Nothing I can talk about right now. 2 projects in the works, but I can't say anything because they're not my projects. I'm working for somebody else.
Okay.
Nothing in my end either, I'm afraid. Working on that.
Well, hey, you know what? It's good to prime the pumps and build buzz. So, folks, keep an eye out because at least 2 of our guests have projects they're working on. I know that CL is also. He's mentioned that on the show before. And we all know what I'm working on. So, keep an eye out for that. Thanks for joining us. We'll return tomorrow night, and I don't know, chat. Did you like? So far, we've tried 3 different times. We've tried 8, 9, and 10 Central. I think we'll try 9 again. That seemed to work pretty well. We were able to catch a lot of people at the right time, judging by our number of co-hosts. So yeah, we'll shoot again for 9 tomorrow, and then I'm gonna take Friday off, and I think we'll be back next Tuesday. So for Geek Gab, this has been Brian. It is your turn to talk, co-host.
Oh, whoops.
Thanks for having
Alright.
us on, Brian. Good night from AA here.
And good night from Crusader Saracen. Thank you again for having us on, Brian.
And good night from Martel. Yeah, thanks. It's been a blast.
I had a blast too. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, chat. See you next time.